being focused is super valuable because customers, they don't want generalists. They want specialists. This is Revenue Science, the podcast that uncovers the reality behind effective marketing for CEOs and executive leaders. I'm Rich Smith. Together, we'll challenge the spin, reveal proven behavioral science strategies, and give you the tools to transform marketing and sales from guesswork to measurable growth. My guest today is Tomer Azenkot, CEO of VEE24. VEE24 bridges online sales and support with human connection through videos, co-browsing, and appointment scheduling. There are a lot of lessons to take away from the way Tomer basically did a reset of VEE24 to turn it around, and then did a pivot to take the company from its focus on financial services and banking to a focus in luxury retail. And we hope to get into all of that today. Hey, Tomer, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Chris. I'm happy to be here.
Great. Hey, so just launching straight in, you stepped into your role at VEE24 as a CEO, as a first-time CEO, and really had an ambitious challenge, right? I think, as you said at the time, it was to reset the company. What did that reset look like to you?
Well, there was a lot of chaos, a lot of different things happening at once. And I won't get into the reasons how we got there before I joined, but starting from when I joined, there was a lot of having to figure out what we're spending money on. We were really upside down when it comes to the balance sheet and cash flow. So we had to straighten things out. And for me, the first problem to tackle was understanding, okay, what is it that we're spending money on, and how can we reduce our expenses with the aim of being profitable. Fast forward to where we are today, I can now say that it took about 2 years to get to that point. But at first, it was a lot of chaos. And my takeaway, again, as a first-time CEO, as you said, is that it's really important to dive into the details and literally go line by line and question every expense. That also really helped me to understand the business. So the first few weeks were kind of an education process where I got to know, obviously, the team, the product, but also how is the business operating? What are we spending money on? And really identifying, okay, what can we cut now? What can we make a plan to cut a little bit later? And how do we get to that point where we're a sustainable company?
You mentioned that the company was burning tons of cash. I think that was the phrase you used. So what was your, did you have any metrics in place? Like, how did you determine what was truly essential and what had to go?
I think it starts by just questioning everything. I put together a leadership team, something that didn't exist. So I had my team of 3 or 4 leaders who we got together every week. And between those 3 or 4 people, it changed over time a little bit, but let's say 3 or 4 people, each one had their area of the business that they were responsible for and accountable for. And I could ask them, we would discuss whether a particular software license or a particular team member is absolutely necessary at this point. Because if we don't change anything, we know that we'll all be out of a job within a few months. That was the reality. So luckily, people were all aligned with that objective, and we worked together to understanding what's necessary, what isn't. We also had to add some new expenses, which is okay. And then they were not just here to break even or be a little bit profitable. We also want to grow the business, of course. But that process took a lot of time. And I think, and again, in hindsight, I think perhaps I could have been even more aggressive and jumped a little bit faster to conclusions, because dragging that process out is really costly in our case.
Yeah, in behavioral science, there's a concept that we think of called loss aversion. And, one of the things is, like, people fear losing things and the fear of cutting, what's familiar. even when it's not working, right? Because it's familiar. How did you overcome that instinct, that natural instinct that your team members would have?
Yeah, in some cases, I think you just can't give people choices. It's not a democracy in some cases, and I had to make some tough decisions. I'll give a couple of examples. We had a team of three people who were outsourced QA engineers, and so we had one in-house person and three outsourced, a team of four in total. And one of my first areas that I thought we can basically cut a lot and save a lot of money is to let them go, let the outsourced team go. So we went from a team of four to a team of one in house, and it seemed like that would be impossible to everyone because that was just the status quo. It was what everyone was used to. But turns out a couple of months later, it was as if nothing happened and everything was fine, and it didn't really hurt our performance in any way. So that's an example of just how everyone was kind of settled into the status quo. Maybe not necessarily loss aversion, but in some cases you just have to maybe think outside the box a little bit and have a can-do attitude about it. And in the end, we got it done, and really there wasn't much of an impact. Also, similarly on the engineering side, we also had a small team that was outsourced, which created a lot of work in addition to them generating work. And I came to a conclusion with our head of engineering that it's almost a wash. The amount of time that the in-house engineers were spending holding the outsources team's hands, or making up for mistakes that they were doing, or training, it was just a huge investment. And at the end of the day, their contribution was relatively limited. So again, we cut that team. This was all within the first few weeks of myself joining, and the cost saving was enormous. It was a team of seven in total, the QA and engineering, which was a big percentage of the overall company. And we managed to make that change, within weeks. And again, in hindsight, now being almost 3 years later, I can say that it didn't have much of an impact on our operation, and it had a tremendous impact on our cash flow.
So, in the realm of sales and marketing throughout this process, let's think about the reverse. Did you happen to find something that was performing so well that you actually decided to keep it, or maybe even increase it or invest more in it?
Yeah, yeah. In fact, funny you should ask it that way, because that's exactly what happened. We were doing really well with our existing customers, which is a testament both of our product and of the team that was working with the existing customers. It took me about a year, but I was fortunate enough to bring in a former colleague from a previous company, and a friend, to manage the way we manage our accounts, or the way we deal with customer success. He's still on the team today as our head of customer success. And we basically doubled down on our efforts to not only keep the customers happy and avoid churn, but also grow our customers. And what happened is that of our top five customers, which together represent a majority of our revenue, we were able to grow all five and get them on long-term contracts and build strong relationships with them that are really paying off. And that's the gentleman that joined our team, and also myself. I invested a lot of my time in working with the existing customers.
Yeah, that's great, and I think that's a great example, and one that's often overlooked, right? Many times I think organizations think about getting the next new customer and forget about the fact that the people who've already bought from you are the most likely to buy from you again. And if there's an opportunity to expand or double down with the customers that you already have, and it's not an either or, right? You don't have to just chase acquisition or just chase, expansion or upsell, cross sell, however you want to define it. Um, they both can be valuable, but that cross sell upsell oftentimes has a higher ROI and a faster path to increased revenue. So I think I read somewhere that you called your turnaround playbook the reset to accelerate strategy. So you started out by cutting costs, but you also somewhat restructured the way you work inside the organization. Can you talk about that a little bit? Like how did you do that? What kind of operational changes did you make?
A bunch. So we made pretty big adjustments because we've reduced to a much smaller team size. We're about half the number of people that we were 3 years ago. And we're also more distributed around the globe, which is a change. So um, strangely enough, so I'm in the Boston area. When I joined in the Boston area, we had 5 people and 3 physical offices, which sounds a bit crazy. There's more to the story, but at the end of the day, that's a fact. Today, we have no physical offices in the United States, and we have people in a number of different states. We also have a couple people around Europe, which we didn't have before. And our main office, which is in the UK, VEE24 was originally a UK headquartered company. So our only physical presence in terms of an office today that people go to every day is just outside of Manchester in England. But we're now a remote first. I consider us at least a remote first company. Um, I don't care where you are around the world. In most cases, you can work also your hours as fits for your time zone or for whatever is convenient for you, as long as it doesn't interfere with anything else. But we definitely don't have to have people coming into the office. And obviously, I'm not saying anything that's groundbreaking or super creative, but the leadership that was at the company before me kind of did the opposite of that. Even knowing, going through COVID, about a year after everyone transitioned to working from home due to COVID, they put in a big lease on a big office in downtown Boston, in a very traditional kind of fixed number of seats, long-term commitment, which had again a big cost that in hindsight was not necessary. So transitioning everyone to think as a remote first company, I think had a real positive impact, and it's given us also a lot of flexibility to hire anywhere, especially when it comes to we're in Boston. The majority of the teams in England, these are two places that are relatively expensive and difficult to hire people because people have a lot of options. Now we have someone who lives in the north of Sweden. We have someone who lives in the north of in northern Minnesota. So places that are, I think, give you more flexibility as a hiring manager, but also produce very loyal employees because they're not being, they're not going to an office where they see 10 other companies that may also be hiring, which is a big problem in my experience when you're in a large metro area that just has people have many options.
Yeah, there definitely are trade-offs with going to a remote work environment. I've been in both. I personally like the remote environment. I like that it gives you the flexibility to have a talent pool that's basically completely open-ended. You're not limited to the talent pool in any specific geography. I think one of the challenges, and particularly when you're in an organization that's going through a lot of change, one of the challenges is keeping a consistent culture across a remote team. Particularly when you're bringing in new team members that are not going to be physically located with you or not getting FaceTime with you. The proverbial water cooler chats aren't taking place. And that's where a lot of culture gets transmitted from one person to the other. I'm interested as to like, how are you dealing with that? How are you maintaining a cohesive culture within VEE24 with their remote staff environment?
Yeah, yeah, I agree with everything you said. It's definitely there are trade-offs, there are pros and cons. We're small enough so I can have a one-on-one every once in a while with every single employee in the company, which makes it easier. If we were 200 people, maybe I feel different about it. We try to get together the entire team quarterly. It doesn't always work out, but that's kind of a goal to get in person at a particular location once a quarter. We have my approach in general, but I think being a remote company even further pushes me in this direction is being extremely transparent about everything. So every person in the company has access to basically almost all our financials, all of our customer records. So anyone can see basically anything at any point in time. And we also do a monthly all hands call that we never miss, where I kind of update, and also other people on the team update on what are the major things that happened over the past month. If there's any strategic direction that we're changing or anything that we're going after in the next month or two, we'll also discuss that. So that keeps everyone up to date and aligned. And it also, I hope at least, it creates an environment where if someone wants to disagree or has a different opinion, it also gives them the stage to do that, which is great.
Yeah, no, honestly, I think that's super important. And one thing that it's great to hear that you're doing that, because I think that's one thing that a lot of leaders really get wrong is they don't create an environment that that makes people feel like it's okay there's a way to disagree, and then there's a way to be, argumentative and not be a team player. And disagreement is not being a team player, right? You want people who are going to bring you opposing viewpoints, because that helps you get to the right answer. And if you each have a team full of people that say yes to everything that you say, that's not really all that helpful, right? Um, again, steering this back to sales and marketing for a second, what did you learn about evaluating the ROI of your sales and marketing efforts, like during this phase? And were there signals that told you that something was worth, again, doubling down on? Again, going beyond what you said about working with existing customers before. What about the next phase? What insights did you gather?
Yeah. So very much related to turning the company around and having some immediate cash flow challenges or challenges around being around for a couple of years. It took us a little while, but we eventually, about a year ago, pivoted a little bit in terms of who we want to go after. One of the things that I identified pretty quickly is that our cost of acquisition is incredibly high for new customers. A big part of that was that we historically had a lot of success with financial selling to financial institutions, and there the sales cycles can be incredibly long, and we can't afford hiring a salesperson that goes and chases that 3-year deal, and basically produces nothing for 3 years, which was happening. So we stopped doing that, and we pivoted a little bit to focus on a particular market segment where we had some success in the past, but it wasn't really our clear target. And also, we in the past were spreading quite thin by trying to focus on 5 different industry segments, and we came to the conclusion that at least for the next 6 to 12 months, this is about a year ago, we should just pick one where we know we have a good chance of being successful. We know that the sales cycles are short, and try to get some runs on the board and help us both improve our financials and also get some wins, which are really important for morale and for the team to feel like they're doing something important. So we did that. We said, let's pause on the financial institutions, at least only for new customer acquisition. So we're still going to really invest in working with our existing customers in that space, but let's focus on luxury retail. So we redid our website. We really tried to put ourselves in the shoes of what a luxury retailer is after, even though the technology isn't really that different between the different types of segments we go after, but it's dramatically different in the way you market the platform, and also how you talk to the customers. Who is it that we want in front of the customers? Where we want to be in terms of industry events and so on. So lots of small changes that are part of a larger strategy that is very deliberate in making a change.
Yeah, I'd love to, definitely want to get into talking about how you chose luxury retail. But before we do that, I want to double click on something that you said, which I think is really, really important that, again, a lot of people miss. And that is, you said you started out by having, I think you said 5 or 6 different industry segments that you were focused on, and decided that that was too many and whittled that down to one. And that's got to have felt a little scary. And I'm sure you had a lot of team members, maybe even board members, that were a bit freaked out about that. But honestly, like, there's an age old saying, like, if you try to be something to everyone, you end up being nothing to everyone, right? So I might have gotten that wrong, but it's something like that, right? You get the point. It's like you kind of have to pick a niche, right? And go after it and really try to own that niche and be great at it. And if you got great at one niche, then that's nothing to say that you can't go after a second or a third or a fourth. But being focused is super valuable, because customers, they don't want generalists. They want specialists, right? If you need a knee operation, you want to go to the best knee surgeon in Boston. You don't want to go to a surgeon that does shoulders and elbows and knees and ankles. You want to go to the knee surgeon, right? You want to go to a specialist. So for you, picking luxury retail and specializing in a certain industry, you're showing that industry, it's like, hey, we get you. We understand your industry, and that's just going to help you attract more business. So, sorry, that was a long preamble, long-winded on my part. Sorry about that. I'll get to a question, I promise. So how did you pick luxury retail? Like, sky's the limit. You've got all these industries you could pick from. You're heavy in banking, which is way over here on like regulated industry side. You go all the way to luxury retail, which they almost could not be more different. Talk me through that.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, before I do, I'll add one more important element to what you were saying about being a specialist. In our situation, it's even more important than the analogy you gave, because we're not selling. When I say selling, like marketing, I guess may be a better word. We're not. It's not the product; it's a solution. And while the product, let's say our video chat platform, may be identical at a bank and at a luxury retailer, the solution we're delivering is incredibly different. Um, for the luxury retailers, we're helping them better connect with their customers. At a bank, it's a different value proposition altogether. And even within the bank, it makes a big difference if it's just the generic customer support line, or if it's a mortgage professional, or if it's a private banker. So there are a lot of nuances that really make a big difference between the different use cases. When it comes to luxury retail, so first maybe I'll take a step back. VEE24 helps better engage with people who are on a website or in a web or mobile experience, and we think that video is incredibly helpful. And there are two kind of general buckets of when do you want video. You want video when the product or service is visual, so you want to see something. So if you're buying, let's say, a diamond ring, it's not something that you can really pick up the phone and talk to the sales representative and hear from them what it looks like. You want to see it. So video adds a lot of value, especially. So if I'm buying a piece of jewelry for my wife, then just seeing it may not really help me as much as speaking maybe with a woman who's similar to my wife, and maybe she puts it, if it's a ring, puts it on her finger and shows me on video. That's really helpful. The other bucket, which is more applicable to financial institutions, is when you need to trust the person, or when you're trying to build this relationship. And it's kind of the same reason that we're on video right now. It's just more engaging to talk to someone when you see their facial expression and being able to see them while they're speaking. So that really, it's kind of two very specific reasons for why video, but they apply in different ways to a host of different use cases. In the retail world, it's relevant for anything high consideration, I would say. So if you're buying something like jewelry, if you're buying, let's say, furniture, whenever you're spending a lot of money, you're going to be more careful about the purchase, and maybe just clicking through a website may not be sufficient to build that trust and get people to spend, $1,000 or more. So within retail, luxury is kind of like the intersection of those two buckets that I described. On the one hand, it's very visual products in most cases, and and at the same time, it's a highly considered, and you probably want to speak with someone who's a bit of an expert on it. So think luxury watches. We work with the largest retailer in the luxury watch space, where they have watches between $5,000 and $50,000, maybe more. So when you're making a purchase like that, it helps, I think, to speak with someone rather than just adding to cart and checking out on your own. So luxury is great. Other considered retail, like home furnishing or any type of home improvement, is really relevant as well. Again, talk to an expert, also see the product at the same time, and that marriage really produces a lot of value.
Yeah, and one thing, just drawing another concept from behavioral science, one of the things that's really key to luxury retail is creating the idea of scarcity, right? Like the last thing that a luxury retailer wants is for any of their products to appear to be a commodity. That diamond ring that you're shopping for your wife is one of a kind, and they want it to appear to be one of a kind. So the entire experience has got to be, this is the only ring like this, right? Or this is the only watch
and
like this, right?
that's very true. And
Great.
Swiss watches are a very interesting, from a inventory and supply point of view, is very interesting. So I don't know if it's 80 or 99%, but a large majority of people want to buy a very small number of watch models. And the retailers have a bunch of inventory that people aren't necessarily going after. And there is a lot of that. There's also like a give and take, as I learned over the past couple of years, where the retailer will say, buy a couple of these watches, and then I'll let you in on the wait list for this, this one that everyone wants. So that requires a conversation.
Yeah, they're taking a page out of the Hermes playbook with their purses, right?
Yeah, exactly the same.
Yeah. So I'm curious. So what did you do from your market facing presence, like everything from your website to even sales pitches, your go to market, to adjust from a focus on banking to a focus on attracting luxury retailers?
Yeah, so we updated everything that has to do with the branding. So the presentation decks and the website. Try to replicate the look and feel of luxury brands. There aren't that many technology companies selling only into luxury brands, so it wasn't so easy to say we want to look like that company. So we had to look at the companies that we want to sell to more. It was an interesting process. So we redid our website nearly a year ago now, and it's hard to imagine, but this was relatively early in the days of AI website generation, and we had an incredible experience building the website with an AI tool that did all the work basically, and got us from 0 to maybe 90% very quickly, and enabled us also to create multiple variations and then evaluate them. Something that would have taken several months and cost several $100,000s with an agency a few years ago. Today, it seems like, of course, you would do it with AI, but a year ago, it was just the beginning of that, and we had tremendous success with that. It cost us almost nothing, and allowed for Hannah, our marketing specialist, who is relatively junior and relatively not technical, to do a lot with very little, and it enabled us also to evaluate multiple visuals that are actually functioning prototypes and almost ready to be launched websites, without having, again, to hire someone from the outside and pay lots of money for it.
Mm-hmm. Do you mind me asking what tool you used?
No, it was Lovable.
Lovable, yeah.
And
Yeah,
I've had experience. others.
And have built websites with Lovable. It's a great tool.
Yeah, and I mean, we still use it. We still make updates to our website using it, and again, super efficient and enables non-technical folks to do what previously required lots of technical.
Yeah, and I think you were accurate there. I mean, you can get from 0 to 80 or 0 to 90. At least that's been my experience. There's still some work that needs to be done by a human to take it the rest of the way. And in fact, it's actually probably a pretty good transition to what I wanted to talk to you about next. And that is, you've talked a lot about, in this crazy AI this, AI that dominated world that we're in now, you've talked a lot about the human AI collaboration as opposed to being fully AI first. Tell me what you mean by that. Like, what's your philosophy there?
Yeah. So we're obviously a technology company, and we have AI in our platform. So we have an AI bot that can act instead of a human for customer interactions. We also have AI features that help the humans be more effective when they deal with other humans. But really, what I think it comes down to is that there are some use cases out there when it comes to customer engagement online that, uh, at least today, AI is not the right solution. And it's I think becoming more and more niche and smaller use cases. But the examples we talked about before, you're buying a diamond ring. At least for me, the last thing I would want to do is go back and forth with a bot trying to understand what it is I want to buy. So we're trying to focus on those use cases where the human to human interaction is important. And what we're seeing is that often our prospective customers are actually making the wrong choice and going with AI and then paying the price for it. And I mean, I'm sure anyone listening has felt that also when they interacted with, it could be their telecommunications provider or some kind of customer service where AI kind of failed. It would have been much better if it were a human. Now, not in all cases is it important enough where it makes sense for the company to invest in having a human. Obviously, the human is more expensive than the AI in most cases, but there are still many use cases where that is the case. And I think another element of where we want to be in use cases where the retailer or the company wants to talk to their customer. So if you think of a parallel between, let's say, the in-person experience at a brick and mortar retail store, when you walk in, most retailers would want one of their associates to come up and greet you and talk to you and invest that time, even though that time is costing them money, right? They could save money by having less people, but there is a clear calculation of how much investment in the customer will actually pay for itself. The same is true on a website, and most websites you're not greeted in any way by a human, and you can go through the entire checkout journey without having any human interaction, and that's probably not the right solution for some high value or for some high consideration transactions.
Yeah, I would go further to say that most websites are written for the company that produced the website, not for the company's customers. But that's a whole story for another day. We could do 5 episodes on that one. I wonder if you could share a specific success story, maybe an example of you don't have to say the client's name, but an example of a client that you worked with and how it worked out.
Sure. There are quite a number of them. So one where we have videos of them giving a testimonial on our website as well. But it's a large cosmetics brand or beauty care brand, and we work with their team in the UK. They offer basically free consultations. So this again goes back to the company wants to spend the time in front of their customers, even though there's a cost. It's a cost center to them. but they want, instead of people coming in and just adding a couple of items to the cart and checking out, and these aren't super high value products. I think on average they're about 30 to $40, maybe even less. And they offer consultations where they have these beauty consultants that will spend half an hour, maybe even more, consulting with the customer and helping them understand what what products are right for their objectives. And they sit in a contact center that basically a cubicle, that has a basket behind them with 20 or 30 different lotions and so on, and they run them through what a good routine would be. And what we've seeing the data, is that the average order value for them is nearly 3 times higher for the customers that come in through that process with the beauty consultants, with ones that go with self checkout. And again, it's not big numbers. We're talking about average order value of maybe between $100 and $150, but it creates this incredible customer satisfaction and loyalty. And it's a consumable product, so we'll buy the same thing the next month again. So that's a net new service that didn't exist beforehand. So generated measurable positive business outcome, and probably an immeasurable or difficult to measure longer term impact on the brand and the brand loyalty that I think is really important these days.
Yeah, and there's a couple things that are going on there. They're obviously creating a much better customer experience, but they're also, bringing the concept of reciprocity into play, right? Because when the customer sits down with the beauty consultant and the beauty consultant goes through a whole routine with them and shows them how to use all the products and spends all that time with them, well, now the customer feels obligated to buy something, right? As human beings, we are hardwired for reciprocity. It's what kept us alive for millennia, right? When we were living in tribes, you do one thing for someone and you kind of expect them to do something back. It's a social contract that's just built into our DNA. And that's exactly what they're doing right there. They're making use of that aspect of our psyches, and it's brilliant and obviously working well for them. So when you think about the synergy and the future of human AI synergy, what does that look like for you and for VEE24?
Yeah, I think in the short term, we're adding a lot of features where the AI is assisting the agents, so our customers' teams. For example, there is a whole group of features for what we call agent assist. So as the agent is having the conversation, let's say the customer asks a question about one of their competitors. They may not know the answer offhand, but the AI is listening in and will basically pop up in front of them some answers or some data that they need. So it's helping the humans be more effective. So that's kind of one group of benefits that we think is incredibly valuable. I think over time there will be more and more AI also overtaking human tasks, and I think that's fine. I think it's good. So maybe today we do need a human for something, but maybe 2-3 years from now we won't. But I don't, at least in our lifetimes, I don't think the human is going to go away altogether. I think there still will be some use cases where you may even want to be in person, because you still need to touch and feel something, or you want to have a level of empathy or this emotional connection that you may not feel with a non-human.
So as we kind of begin to close this out, there's a question that I'm going to kind of put you on the spot a little bit here. It's a question I like to ask pretty much every CEO that I talk to. And that is, just pretend for a minute that I am your ideal customer. And succinctly answer for me, why should I buy from VEE24?
So VEE24 versus an alternative or
whatever. Like, why should I buy from you?
Yeah, I think there are many reasons. I think first and foremost, I think we solve In a unique way, we solve a real problem that many companies have, helping them better engage with their website visitors in an authentic human-to-human way. So that's a good reason to invest in human-to-human interaction and in video specifically. And we're kind of uniquely combining the tools that enable the humans, along with some AI that helps connect with the right human, and sometimes maybe also helps resolve the issue when a human is not required. That's a reason to lean into what we do in general, and specifically V24. We have a really strong track record, nearly 20 years of delivering these solutions and having really unparalleled loyalty from our customers. So, of our top 5 customers, I think 4 have been with us for 10 years or more, which is unheard of for software as a service platforms. And the 5th one I think has been with us for 6 or 7 years, right? So that's a testament of just how we deliver what we say we will, and we do a really good job at it.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. So for other CEOs that are inheriting companies that need a reset, what would be your number one piece of advice now that you've been through it and you can look back and have the benefit of hindsight?
Yeah. I think, first of all, before going into it, ask yourself if this is really something you want to do, because a lot of it is not fun. And, I travel a lot. I used to travel even more. And I remember what it was like working for a company that was doing really well, and a larger company as well, where I used to fly business class all over the place and stay at really nice hotels. That's not happening when your company is on the verge of going under or really struggling financially. So it goes beyond taking on your first CEO role or taking on an exciting new role, but also ask yourself if you want to be in tough situations, and also having to make tough decisions that are often not so fun, like letting people go. So that's kind of the pre-decision or pre being in the role. Once you're in the role, I think it's incredibly important to get into the weeds, get into the details, and really ask a lot of questions. As I mentioned in the beginning of our call, I really went line by line on the operating expenses and questioned whether we need every single thing that was on there, and I still do that. And I think it's a good habit to every year as you renew contracts, to ask the team to make a case for keeping that particular expense. Something that I wouldn't have done if we were focused on growth at all costs. So that's my number one advice, and one of the tools that I've used that has really helped me, and I implemented this not too long ago, is start evaluating things on a weekly basis instead of a monthly basis. It really helps better understand the business, particularly the cash flow. When you see just the monthly financial reports, especially for a smaller business, it may be too far apart to really understand what's happening during the month. And by breaking it down really as low resolution as you can get, which in my case was to look at the weekly numbers, it taught me a lot, and it really helped me understand our business.
So, Tomer, tell me, I'd just be curious, what would your advice be to other first-time CEOs that are inheriting a company that's in need of a reset? In light of now that you've had the experience and you've done it, and you can look back on it with hindsight.
So I think, first of all, before making the decision of taking on the role, you should really ask yourself whether you want to put yourself in a difficult situation, which I thought about and I accepted, but then there were definitely times after I took on the role that I was kicking myself for maybe putting myself in difficult situations, or ones where I had to do things that I didn't love doing, like letting people go, shrinking the team and so on. So that's kind of before jumping in. Once you're in, my biggest takeaway is to really, as I mentioned earlier in our call today, to really dive into the fine details what I found really valuable to do is to have a weekly cash flow tracking where I see every expense and every invoice that we send out on a weekly basis, because monthly is just not low enough of a resolution, especially for a smaller company. And that's taught me a lot about the business. And after a few weeks or months doing that, I realized how much I understand better what we go through. And it also gives me an opportunity to call out wins to the rest of the team. So to share with the rest of the team when something is really good. Again, I see it on a weekly basis. It gives me more opportunities to do so.
Yeah, that's great. And just to double click on the last thing that you said, I think it's so important to, and people think that it's more important for a smaller company to look at data on shorter time frames. As I completely agree with you that looking at it weekly is a great idea. Monthly and quarterly is too, it's not granular enough. Too much time passes for you to make decisions. And honestly, I've been a part of large organizations. Most of my career has been like Fortune 500 companies, and big companies should be looking at data even more regularly than they do because of the scale that they have. You know, you have massive scale in a Fortune 500 company, so that even daily or hourly data is big enough to be making decisions on. So I find that just to be upside down, and a lot of people just really get that wrong, and aren't looking at it frequently enough. So, hey, Tomer, I don't want to take up any more of your time. This has been fantastic. Honestly, masterclass and disciplined leadership. Um, Anything that you want to leave the audience with, like how can people, if they want more information about you or connect with you, want more information about V24, where should they go? What should they do?
Well, our website's the best place to start, VEE24.com. I'm always happy to jump on conversations myself. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'll kind of leave you with one thought experiment, especially for retailers, but also true for I think financial institutions. You spend so much time on making sure that the people coming into the brick and mortar locations have a good experience, and you're more than happy to have someone there to greet them and to spend time with them. That isn't seen as a cost center. It's seen as a good investment. Think whether the same thing should be true for how you think about your website. And the website obviously has much more traffic than your brick and mortar locations, yet there are likely much fewer human-to-human interactions. And if you want to experiment with it, we're always happy to make it very easy and not expensive to give it a shot at least.
Great. I love it. Tomer, thanks again. And big thumbs up for V24.
Thanks, Rich. It was fun.